Captain Lee Minjin walked slowly across the metal floor of the ship's bridge. His boots made quiet sounds on the cold surface. Outside the big window, stars moved past like tiny lights in the darkness. The ship called Endurance had been flying through space for 3 long years now. Minjin was tired, very tired. His hair had gray streaks that were not there before the war. His uniform was clean, but old. He had fixed it many times with patches and new buttons. Behind him, 20 officers worked at their stations. They pushed buttons and watched screens that showed information about the ship. "Captain," said Park Hannah. She was young, maybe 25 years old. Her job was to help the ship find its way through space. "I am seeing something strange on my screen." Minjin turned around. "What is it, Officer Park?" Hannah looked at her screen again. The green light from the monitor made her face bright. "It looks like a distress call, sir. Someone is asking for help." "From who?" Minjin asked. He walked over. "To her station." "The signal is coming from the Zephyrian fleet, Captain." Hannah's voice was quiet. She knew this was not good news. Minjin felt his stomach drop. The Zephyrians were not friends to humans. During the big war 3 years ago, they had called humans weak and stupid. They said human technology was too simple. They laughed at human ships and weapons. Many human soldiers died fighting against Zephyrian warriors. "Are you sure?" Minjin asked. "Yes, sir. The signal is definitely Zephyrian, and it sounds very urgent." Kim Ji-ho looked up from his station. He was the chief engineer, the man who kept the ship running. His hands were always dirty from working on machines. "Captain, we have a problem. Our fuel is very low. We only have enough to reach the next star system if we help the Zephyrians. We might not have enough fuel to escape if something goes wrong." Minjin looked around the bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for his decision. These people trusted him. They had followed him for 3 years through the darkness of space. They were the last humans he knew about. Maybe they were. The last humans in the entire galaxy Earth was gone. It's not destroyed, but silent. No messages came from home anymore. The consortium wars had ended badly for humanity. The other alien races had decided that humans were too dangerous to live. They had attacked human colonies and destroyed human ships. Most humans had died in the fighting. The Endurance had been a research ship when the war started. It was supposed to study new planets and look for resources. Instead, it became a refugee ship. 200 humans lived on it now. They were scientists, engineers, doctors, and their families. They were all that was left of humanity as far as anyone knew. "Sir," said Hannah, "the distress signal is getting weaker. If we are going to help them, we need to decide soon." Minjin closed his eyes. He remembered his father's words from long ago. "Son, you judge a man not by how he treats his friends, but by how he treats his enemies when they need help." But this was different. This was not about one man. This was about the survival of the human race. If they helped the Zephyrians and something went wrong, all humans might die. The species would be extinct. "Captain," said Dr. Yoon Sejin from the medical station. He was an old man with kind eyes. "What if the situation was reversed? What if we were the ones asking for help?" Minjin opened his eyes. He looked at the stars outside the window. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Maybe they were his enemies. Maybe they hated him and his kind. But they were still people. "Officer Park," he said, "set course for the distress signal." "Sir?" Hannah looked surprised. "You heard me. We go to help them." Ji-ho stood up from his station. "Captain, with respect, this could be a trap. The Zephyrians might be trying to trick us, maybe," Minjin said. "But if we leave them to die, what does that make us? We are not like them. We do not abandon people who need help. That is what makes us human." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Hannah started pushing buttons on her console. "Of course," said Captain. "We will reach the distress signal in 4 hours." "Good. All stations, prepare for possible rescue operations. And prepare for possible combat. We do not know what we will find." As the Endurance changed direction and flew toward the distress signal, Minjin wondered if he was making the right choice. He was risking everything, his ship, his crew, and maybe the future of humanity itself. But he knew his father would be proud The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter as they flew toward the unknown. In the darkness of space, the small human ship carried something precious: hope. Even when the galaxy had forgotten them, even when everyone thought they were dead, humans still believed in doing what was right. Soon, they would learn that sometimes the greatest strength comes from showing mercy to those who have shown you none. 4 hours later, the Endurance arrived at the source of the distress signal. What they found made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. A huge Zephyrian warship floated helplessly near a dying star. The ship was 3 times bigger than the Endurance. Its dark metal hull had large holes burned through it. Pieces of the ship drifted in space around it, like broken toys. "My God," whispered Hannah. "What happened to them?" Captain Minjin studied the damaged ship through the window. Zephyrian warships were famous throughout the galaxy. They were supposed to be unbreakable. This one looked like something had eaten it from the inside. "Captain," said Communications Officer Bei Subin, "I am getting a message from the Zephyrian ship." Put it on the main screen. The screen flickered and showed the face of a Zephyrian commander. His skin was gray and rough like stone. His eyes were yellow and very tired. Blood ran down the side of his face from a cut on his forehead. "Human ship," the alien said in broken English. "I am Commander Kralvith of the Zephyrian fleet. We... We need help." It was strange to hear a Zephyrian ask for help. During the war, they had been so proud. It told humans that Zephyrian warriors never needed help from anyone, says Captain Lee Minjin. "What happened to your ship?" Kralveth looked away from the camera for a moment. When he looked back, his yellow eyes were full of fear. The silence came. "It took our weapons. It took our computers. It turned everything against us." The silence. Minjin had never heard this word before. An ancient enemy. It finds civilizations and destroys them. It uses their own technology to kill them. Our great ships, our powerful weapons, they all became our enemies. Dr. Yoon Sejan stepped forward. "How many survivors do you have?" 800, Kralveth said. "Maybe fewer now. Our life support systems are failing. Silence corrupted them before we escaped." Minjin looked at his officers. "Aliens. The Endurance only had space for 200 people, and it was already full. But people were dying on that ship." "We will help you," Minjin said. Kralveth looked surprised. "You will help us? After what we did to your people in the war?" "We help people who need help. That is what humans do." 2 hours later, the first shuttle arrived from the Zephyrian ship. Engineering specialist Choi Do-yoon met them in the landing bay. She was a small woman, but she was very good at fixing things. The Zephyrian engineers who came off the shuttle were twice her size, but they looked lost and confused. "Our systems keep failing," one of them said. "We fix them, but they break again in a few minutes." Do-yoon looked at the broken equipment they brought with them. "Your technology is too smart," she said. "When one part gets sick, it makes all the other parts sick too." She led them to the human engineering room. Zephyrians stared at the simple human machines. Everything was mechanical. Gears turned. Pistons moved up and down. Nothing used advanced computers. "This is very primitive," said the Zephyrian engineer. "Yes," Dune agreed. "But it works. Watch." She turned a handle, and a motor started running. "No computer can break this. If it stops working, I can fix it with simple tools." While Do-yoon worked with the Zephyrian engineers, Dr. Seojan treated the wounded aliens in the medical bay. The Zephyrians were surprised by how kind he was. During the war, they had been told that humans were cruel and violent. "Why are you helping us?" asked a young Zephyrian soldier. "We killed many of your people." Dr. Sejan continued cleaning the aliens' wounds. "Because you are hurt, and I am a doctor. That is enough reason." On the bridge, Captain Minjin listened. 2 more reports from Commander Kralveth. The news was very bad. The silence had already destroyed dozens of worlds. The great consortium fleets were gone. Entire civilizations had disappeared. "It is systematic," Kralveth explained. "The silence finds a civilization when their technology becomes too advanced. Then it takes control of their machines and weapons. The people die by their own creations." "But why did it not find humans during the war?" asked Minjin. Your technology was too simple. The silence looks for pure digital systems. Your machines are mechanical and analog. It cannot see them. Minjin felt a cold fear in his stomach. Are you saying that we are the only ones it cannot detect? I do not know. But maybe. Maybe your primitive technology is not so primitive after all. Over the next few days, more refugee ships arrived. Ships from the Crystalline Empire, the Voidwalkers, and the Machine Collective. All were running from the silence. All were desperate. The aliens looked at the small human ship with new eyes. The same technology they had laughed at during the war might now be their only hope for survival. But helping so many people created new problems. There was not enough food. It's not enough space. It's not enough fuel. And some of the refugees still hated humans. Captain Minjin stood in his quarters. Looking out at the growing fleet of refugee ships, he had made a choice to help one Zephyrian ship. Now he was responsible for thousands of aliens from dozens of different species. The impossible choice was becoming even more impossible. Save the galaxy and risk humanity's survival, or save humanity and watch the galaxy die. The refugee fleet had grown to 53 ships. They floated in space like a small city of metal and lights. Inside the main meeting room of the Endurance, representatives from 12 different alien species sat around a large table. The air was thick with tension and fear. Captain Minjian looked around the room. 3 weeks ago, these beings would have killed him without thinking twice. Now they needed his help to survive. Irony was not lost on him. You cannot be serious, said the crystalline ambassador. Her body was made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns, but her voice was angry. You want us to make our technology worse? To become as primitive as humans? Communications officer Bei Subain translated her words into different languages for the other species. Some of the aliens nodded in agreement. Others looked worried. Chief Technician Go Taeyon stood up slowly. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke. In meetings. But when he did speak, people listened. Not primitive, he said calmly. Strong, your crystal technology is very beautiful. But one electromagnetic pulse can shut down your entire ship. Our mechanical systems keep working no matter what happens. The crystalline ambassador's body flashed with angry red light. Our technology has served us for 10,000 years. And where did it get you? Asked Security Chief Shin Dong-yoon. His voice was hard and cold. Running from an enemy that uses your own weapons against you. The room became very quiet. Dong-yoon had lost his wife and children in the war. He did not trust any of these aliens, and he did not hide his feelings. Dr. Yoon Seojin cleared his throat. We are not here to insult anyone. We're here to find a way to survive. The silence is coming, and we need to work together. Commander Kralveth leaned forward. His gray skin looked very pale. The doctor's right. 3 days ago, we received the last transmission from the Zephyrian homeworld. The silence has taken control of our planetary defense systems. My people are being killed by their own weapons. Young pilot Oh Hinwoo spoke from the back of the room. He was only 22 years old, but he had become one of the best pilots in the human fleet. My grandfather used to fix old machines, he said. He always told me. The newest tool breaks when you need it most. The oldest tool never lets you down. The Voidwalker representative made a sound like wind through empty spaces. Through a translator device, his words came out as, "The young human speaks wisdom. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. Those who depend only on complexity often die from their own cleverness." Engineering teams led by Lee Neon began working on the first hybrid systems. It was slow, difficult work. The aliens' advanced technology had to be connected to simple human mechanical systems. Many of the alien engineers did not understand why it would work. Look, Neon explained to a group of machine collective technicians, your quantum computers are amazing. They can solve problems in seconds that would take us years, but they need perfect conditions to work. Our mechanical computers are slow and simple, but they work in any conditions. She showed them a human navigation system. It used both electronic sensors and mechanical instruments. If the electronics fail, we can still find our way using the mechanical parts. If the mechanical parts break, we can still use the electronics. The system has ... what is the word ... redundancy. While the engineers worked, tensions grew between the different species. Zephyrians still believed they were superior warriors. Caselins thought their technology was the most advanced. The machine collective looked down on biological life forms. Some humans were angry too. Security Chief Dong-Yun gathered a group of human soldiers in the cargo bay. "We should not help them," he said. "They tried to kill us all during the war. Now they want us to save them." "They are people," said Medical Officer Jung Yoonji. She had been listening from the doorway. "Scared people who need help." "They are our enemies," Dong-Yun replied. "They were our enemies. Now they are just people trying to survive." The argument was interrupted by an alarm. Communications Officer Subin's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All hands to battle stations. Unknown ships approaching." They matched the description of silence vessels. Everyone ran to their positions. On the bridge, Captain Minjin watched. The main screen, 3 ships approached the refugee fleet. They looked familiar. One was Zephyrian, one was crystalline, and one belonged to the machine collective. But something was wrong with them. They moved too perfectly like they were being controlled by something else. "Those are our ships," whispered Commander Kralveth. "The silence has taken them." The corrupted ships began to attack the refugee fleet. Their weapons were incredibly accurate. Every shot hit its target. But the attacks were predictable, mathematical. The silence was using the original programming of the ship's computers. "All ships," Captain Minjin broadcast to the fleet, "begin evasive maneuvers. Do not follow standard patterns. Be unpredictable." The human ships began flying in strange, irregular patterns. The other ships tried to copy them, but their computers kept trying to correct the errors in their flight paths. "The silence expects us to act logically," Minjin realized. "It cannot understand why we would do something that seems wrong." The battle had begun. And for the first time, the refugee fleet had an advantage. The same primitive thinking that had been mocked during the war might now be their salvation. The battle began with a sound like thunder in space. The 3 corrupted ships moved toward the refugee fleet with deadly precision. Their weapons fired in perfect patterns, hitting exactly where the computer calculations said the targets would be. But the refugee ships were not where the calculations expected them to be. "Remember?" Captain Mingin's voice crackled over the communication system to all 53 ships. "The silence thinks like a computer. Expects us to be logical. Give it chaos instead." On the bridge of the Endurance, pilot Song Minha gripped the controls tightly. She was flying the ship in a pattern that made no sense. Up, down, left, right, spinning in circles. Her movements looked crazy, but they kept the ship alive. "This feels wrong," she said through gritted teeth. "Every instinct tells me to fly. Straight and fast." "Trust your training," said Captain Minjin. "Fly like you are drunk. Fly like you are scared. Fly like you have never flown before." The crystalline ship Eternal Light tried to copy the human flying pattern, but its quantum computer kept correcting the mistakes in the flight path. The ship's movements became predictable again, and a blast from the corrupted Zephyrian vessel hit its crystal hull. Pieces of living crystals scattered into space like glowing snow. In the engine room of the Endurance, Engineer Lim Jong-soo worked frantically to keep the ship running. Sparks flew from damaged circuits. The main drive was overheating. Warning lights flashed red all around him. "The quantum drive is failing," he shouted into his communicator. "I am switching to the backup system." "Which backup?" asked Captain Minjin. "It's the one held together with metal tape and hope," Jong-soo replied. He pulled a lever, and the smooth hum of the quantum drive was replaced by the rough coughing of an old mechanical engine. The ship shuddered, but it kept moving. The corrupted ships paused. Their targeting systems could not understand why the human ship was still moving when their sensors said the main drive had failed. In the command center, Tactical Officer Quan Guan coordinated the defense using a strange combination of tools. She had holographic displays showing enemy positions, but she also had hand-drawn maps spread across her desk. When the holographic systems were jammed by enemy interference, she used pencil and paper to track the battle. "Enemy ship moving to Sector 7, she called out, drawing an X on her paper map. Recommends sending Fighter Squadron 3 to intercept.
How do you know that?
Asked Commander Kralveth, who was observing the human tactics. The enemy has been attacking in a mathematical sequence, Giwan explained while drawing lines on her map. A computer would continue that sequence. So I calculated where they will go next, using this. She held up her pencil. The Zephyrian commander stared at the simple writing tool. His people had quantum computers that could predict the movement of entire star systems. But this human was outthinking them with a piece of wood and graphite pilot. Oh Hainuwu led a squadron of 12 fighters toward the corrupted machine collective ship. His fighter had been modified with human mechanical controls alongside the original alien systems. When the enemy tried to jam his navigation computer, he switched to manual controls. Squadron leader, came a panicked voice over the radio. My targeting computer is down. I cannot lock on to the enemy. Then do not use the computer, Hunwu replied calmly. Look out your window. Point your ship at the enemy. Fire when you think you can hit them. But that is not accurate. The enemy expects accuracy. Give them something unexpected. The fighter squadron attacked in a wild, uncoordinated pattern. Some pilots flew too high, others too low. Some fired too early, others too late. Like chaos. But the corrupted ship's defensive systems could not predict where the next attack would come from. On the medical deck, Dr. Onsuin treated wounded aliens and humans side by side. A young crystalline soldier lay next to a Zephyrian warrior. Both had been injured when their ships were hit. Neither spoke the other's language, but they helped each other sit up when the ship shook from weapon impacts. Doctor, said the crystalline soldier through a translator, why do humans fight so strangely? Dr. Sowen bandaged the soldier's cracked crystal arm. Because we learn to survive by being unpredictable. When you are smaller and weaker than your enemies, you cannot fight them directly. You must be cleverer. The turning point came when the corrupted ships tried to take control of the refugee fleet's computers. The Silence sent out digital attacks designed to corrupt the ship's systems. Most of the alien ships had to shut down their main computers to protect themselves, but the human ships kept fighting. Their critical systems ran on separate mechanical networks that the Silence could not touch. When the enemy expected the human ships to be helpless, they kept moving and shooting. The ancient AI became confused. Its programming was designed to fight civilizations that depended completely on digital technology. It did not know how to handle an enemy that used primitive mechanical systems as backup. The corrupted ships began to make mistakes. They fired at targets that were not there. They moved to positions that made no tactical sense. The perfect coordination of the Silence started to break down. Captain Minjin saw his chance. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Use everything you have. The refugee fleet attacked together for the first time. 6 months after the Great Battle, the morning sun rose over New Terra, humanity's first new home in decades. Planet was beautiful. Blue oceans and green forests that reminded the survivors of Earth. But today was not a day for enjoying the scenery. Today was a day for remembering. Thousands of beings gathered in the memorial garden. Humans stood next to Zephyrians. Crystalline people reflected the sunlight like living rainbows. Machine collective representatives floated silently above the crowd. All had come to honor the dead and celebrate the living. Dr. Park Jimin walked slowly to the speaking platform. She was now the head of the Galactic Reconstruction Council, a job she never wanted but accepted because someone had to do it. Her hair was gray now, and she looked tired. Leading the rebuilding of an entire galaxy was not easy work. Gathered today, she began, to remember Captain Lee Minjin and the crew of the Endurance. They gave their lives so that we could have this moment. In the crowd, Commander Kralveth stepped forward. The proud Zephyrian warrior now wore simple clothes instead of military armor. His yellow eyes were sad but peaceful. I knew Captain Minjin for only a few weeks, he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. But in those weeks, he taught me something important. We called humans primitive because their technology was simple. We forgot that wisdom is not about having the most advanced machines. Wisdom is about knowing when not to use them. The crowd was very quiet. Many remembered the old days when different species hated each other. Those days seemed like ancient history now. Captain Minjin could have left us to die, Kralveth continued. We had been his enemies. We had killed his people. But he chose to save us anyway. He showed us that being strong does not mean having the biggest weapons. Being strong means helping others when they need help. After the ceremony, people walked through the new settlement of New Terra. The buildings were different from anything seen before in the galaxy. They combined the beauty of crystalline architecture with the strength of Zephyrian construction and the simplicity of human engineering. Engineer Choi Yunho supervised construction work at the orbital shipyard above the planet. The new ships being built there looked strange but effective. They had sleek alien designs powered by reliable human mechanical systems. Every ship had 3 different ways to do important jobs: electronic, mechanical, and manual backup systems. Why do we need so many backups? Asked a young crystalline apprentice. Yunho smiled. Because things break. And when they break at the worst possible time, you need something else that still works. Humans learned this lesson long ago. We are teaching it to everyone. In the New Terra school, children from many different species learned together. Principal Kim Ariam watched from her office window as her students played in the courtyard. A human boy named No Jung-soo was building something with simple blocks. His friend, a young Zephyrian girl, watched with interest. What are you making? The Zephyrian child asked. A spaceship, Jung-soo replied. But not a fancy one. A ship that works even when things go wrong. Can I help? Sure. Here you can build the engine room. The 2 children worked together, building their simple toy, spaceship. It was not beautiful like crystalline technology or powerful like Zephyrian weapons, but it was solid and dependable, just like the real ships that now protected the galaxy. In her office, Principal Ariam smiled. These children were growing up in a different galaxy than their parents had known. They learned that being different was not something to be ashamed of. They learned that sometimes the best solution was the simplest one: the human. Engineering Academy had graduated its first class the week before. Students from dozens of species had learned to think like humans, to improvise, to adapt, to find simple answers to complex problems. The graduation ceremony had been attended by leaders from across the galaxy. You are not just engineers, the keynote speaker had told the graduates. You are guardians of wisdom. You carry the knowledge that saved us all. Use it well. It was evening. Came to New Terra. The stars began to appear in the darkening sky. They shone brighter than they had in years. The galaxy was healing. Worlds that had been silent were sending out radio signals again. Trade routes that had been abandoned were reopening. Life was returning to normal, but it was a new kind of normal in the town square. An old human woman sat on a bench with her granddaughter. The little girl pointed up at the stars. Grandma, tell me the story again, about Captain Minjin and the last human ship. The old woman smiled. Once upon a time, the galaxy forgot about humans. All the other species thought we were too simple, too primitive to matter. But the stars remembered us. The stars knew that sometimes the smallest light shines the brightest in the darkness. And then what happened? Then humans showed everyone that being different is not a weakness. It is a strength. We showed them that the best way to solve a problem is not always the most complicated way. Sometimes the best way is the simplest way. The little girl looked up at the stars thoughtfully. Will the galaxy ever forget us again? No, child. Never again, because now everyone knows that wisdom comes in many forms. And some of the greatest wisdom comes from those who never stop, trying even when everyone else has given up. The stars twinkled in agreement, eternal witnesses to courage and hope.